different communities, right? So that did not have the same impact as it could have if at least there was nowhere in the end of it even saying anything about what the sources were for the notation. Not was it guessed, was it Peggy, whatever it was nothing. So I'm left with, well, surmising, well, this was so-and-so, and I know she thinks this way, and so-and-so, you know what I mean? But I still didn't really know what they mean by this symbol. And so that's...
Agree with you. She should have put in the thing that Lynn Weber just now said, which is, this is following Anne's 4th edition, or this is the way it's taught in New York City, or at LIMS, or this is the way the book teaches IMS, or whatever it is.
Exactly. And in fact, people have to do that in... Look at, in scores, we now, because, sometimes people use symbols that Knus used, sometimes people use a different edition of, somebody might use your move, they might use my, but, so you gloss it. But it does bring back the question, and I would like to ask each of you this, do you think, vis-a-vis Brenton's question, how much, do you think that we need to stand, let's even make it, open-ended. Do you think that is an important to have standardization at all, ever? Putting my example as one possibility.
Yeah. I think it's worth doing it, yeah. I don't know that we should restrict application.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the question is, well, what are we really talking about? Standardization it's facilitating the specification of context. And so in order to, grouping like that, I think we have I don't know if it's the relativity fallacy or the unity fallacy, but to say, oh, it's all relative, so everyone can do their own, then that kind of collapses down to something. But actually, we need to be able to specify context. And so I think kind of what Peggy was saying, I think we need to be able to specify particular groups of symbols and meanings. And we might call that standards. We might say that that's oriented around a particular book. But the ability to refer to a known set is useful.
Sure. One of the things that I want to mention is...
And May's got her hand up too.
Oh, I'm sorry, May.
No, you go ahead.
Is embellished notation. Here at the Dance Notation Bureau, we work together, we read each other's scores, we look at the works of each other, and you write something so that other people can read it. Oftentimes in embellished notation, you are hired by the company, you are there by yourself at the dance company, and you write it for yourself to read. So that, especially as time goes on and you've been with the company a long time and you have very limited time, you've developed your own shorthands. And later, someone goes to the scores and they can't be read easily, if at all. They're very readable to the person who wrote them, and they're helpful, and they're a shorthand, but will somebody else get the dance out of them? So that's something to keep in mind. What is the purpose of what you're writing?
Exactly.
It's not just a matter of understanding, but how much is it going to be shared? How much do you want other people to understand?
So what I would like to suggest is, like, when you are inventing a new symbol, look at the available textbook around to see what's in existing symbols and what's being already created, and create in a similar logic with so they stay within the family.
Which is exactly what Peggy has, is very aware of and knowledgeable about.
The process, in other words, the process that we went through resonated with you. It did with me, and so great. Well, we only have 3 minutes left, so.
Everybody, this was really fun.
It was.
Thank you.
I like geeking out.
This is great. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it worked in terms of the video things, and it was relatively this was kind of good that we ended up with different venues, right? And we've solved the problem, yes?
Or at
Because-
least pretty well. Pretty well.
Because my dream would be that we can do this again.
Yes, absolutely.
Why not?
It seems like we just practiced a good way to develop symbols by sharing with each other.
Oh, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
that is one of the things. I mean, I love developing, those of you know, I love developing some thinking about, and, you know,
Thinking about
the thing
symbols.
about them waking up in the middle of the night and thinking about, but if you don't have somebody to bounce off of,
Yeah.
and even if it's, you know, and different kinds of people, your students, your colleagues in a particular, you know, at the bureau, your colleagues in this other, you know, your mother, your husband. No, really, you know, you get ideas from them. You feel
Absolutely,
like, so would it just make sense to anybody, you know? So
I also really appreciate the historical context, because,
Yeah.
you know, especially those of you who've been really steeped in the notation for a while, it's been really helpful and enlightening to see how, you know, things have been, you know, thought about before.
great.
I think that's part of something that we should actually have an intention about, which is somehow recording the history in a less than just anecdotal way. I mean, a more than just anecdotal way, so that more people know what all these how they came about, all these different symbols. You know, because people think, well, who invented the shape, flow, directional, and carving symbols? Who did the Carl Waltz symbols that are like, you know, the little planar and dimension symbols and all sorts of things. And if they don't know, like I was with Carl on top of the peak in Hong Kong when we were working
When he
on
was
those in
doing
the
that.
central, peripheral, and transverse. And, you know, people don't know those kinds of things.
Do you
So
know,
it,
Peggy, are you familiar with the Ann Guest wrote a whole series in the Laba Notator of the development, exactly with the derivation of symbols, and
then in the various textbooks also, as symbols changed, she has in the appendix how they changed, why they changed, you know, in each book she.
are you familiar? And are you familiar with the Laba Notation series, the Laba Notator
Notator.
the Laba Notator series?
very familiar with it when I worked at the Bureau from 1967 to 1975. But I haven't seen it in ages and ages.
It is online on the
Okay.
Theory bulletin board. Would you be interested in my, giving you that link, or you could, I mean, you could look it up, but it's more, pain in the.
But it doesn't go into what Carl Waltz developed. Or
She might have. She was pretty, maybe not because
after a certain period of time.
It depended upon whether he wrote it anyway, it's worth looking at it. But your idea, that's why I was so excited about the conversation we had with you that I recorded, and hope, I've gotten halfway there. And I hope if you will stay on after everybody, I just wanted to ask you one question about that. But
Only a little tiny bit of time though, because I have an 11 o'clock appointment.
It would just be one question. But anyway, but in terms of this, is that idea, so for example, would you think that doing something in this informal way where we gather together interviews like we did with you or other creators of symbols?
I think that's fun. Personally, I mean, not everybody thinks it's fun. Some people are not interested in developing symbols or theory. They want to just do it. So,
Right.
I think collecting the stories would be great.
Train people in this Brenton and Caden's generation and Colleen that are really interested in developing the work as opposed to just teaching what's already been learned.
I just say one other thing. May mainly, with a little bit of my help, have started the idea. This was really May's idea of trying to get more written about the history of motif notation. So Anne wrote a thing about it.
Yeah.
And Valerie Preston Dunlap sent us something about it, and we're gonna have a posting that's gonna go up. But I think the other part of it that's really essential, you know, just talking about motif notation, the history would be then to have the input from people in the LMA community, because the motif notation really is, I think, been developed as much by that community as by anyone else, because it's in use there. Even though you know what I mean, it's an important part of the development.
I agree, that's true.
So I would be also interested in that,
Side things.
that side of things.